Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
All right. Hello. Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
Good evening.
All right, great.
Hi, good evening.
Yusuf, you are audible. You can start.
I'm audible. Am I audible?
Yeah.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Yusuf.
And I'm Anam. To every student joining us with hope, every educator joining us with purpose, and every researcher joining us with insight, and every change maker joining us with courage, welcome. Welcome to From Silence to Solutions, Youth Voices on Mental Health in Schools. Now, I would like to talk about all the mental health issues that are currently prevailing. We would like to invite Ashwari to share her inspiring work on Sarkari School, its vision, initiatives, and the impact it is creating in transforming government education. Please join me in welcoming her as she takes us through this meaningful journey. Ashwari, you have the stage.
Thank you so much, Anam. Good evening, everyone. I'm Aishwari Pandey. On behalf of entire Sarkari School family, I extend a warm welcome to all of you and thank you for joining us today. It is truly encouraging to see you, like so many enthusiastic individuals gathered here. Your presence reflects a shared commitment to learning growth, contributing towards meaningful change in society. Sarkari School is more than just an organization. It is an initiative driven by the belief that education, research, and informed decisions can create a lasting impact. We work towards empowering young minds and encouraging conversation around public policy, governance, social development, and education. Our vision is to build a community of socially aware and responsible individuals who are willing to think beyond themselves and contribute positively to society. We aim to inspire young people to become active participants in solving real world challenges through knowledge and innovation. The purpose of this initiative is not only to provide opportunities for personal and professional development, but also to create future leaders, researchers, policymakers, change makers who can make a positive difference in their communities and beyond. Every participant, volunteer, mentor, and intern associated with Sarkari School plays an important role in this journey. Together, we are building a space that encourages learning and collaboration. Once again, I welcome all of you and thank you for being a part of this initiative. I hope today's event is insightful, engaging, and inspiring for everyone present. Thank you. I wish you all a wonderful session ahead. Over to you, Anam.
Thank you,
Thank
Ashwari.
you. Thanks very much for shedding light on Sarkari School's incredible initiative and for inspiring us with your dedication towards transforming education and creating brighter opportunities for young minds. Today, we stand before you not just as moderators,
But as young voices who understand why this conversation cannot wait.
because for generations, mental health has been spoken about in hushed voices.
Behind closed doors,
in coded language,
wrapped in secrecy.
and burdened with shame.
And today, we are here to ask something simple yet deeply uncomfortable.
Why?
Why has something as natural as our minds become something so difficult to discuss?
Why are millions taught silence before they taught science?
Why are young people taught to hide their struggles before they are taught to understand them?
Why are we expected to carry a stigma we did not create?
And perhaps, most importantly,
Why has society normalized discomfort around a reality that is fundamental to life itself?
these questions are not rhetorical,
They are actually very real.
they are urgent,
And for millions of students, they are deeply personal.
because mental health is not just a diagnosis,
It is a lived experience.
it is the anxiety of walking into a classroom feeling completely alone.
It is the hesitation before asking for help.
It is the silence in hallways where emotional well being is skipped, rushed, or avoided.
It is the very absence of safe spaces,
It is the fear of ridicule
the normalization of just dealing with it.
and the painful reality that for many people, many internal struggles are treated less like health.
And more like something to conceal.
But silence has consequences.
Silence creates stigma,
Stigma creates shame,
creates barriers
and those barriers show up everywhere
in attendance sheets,
in academic performance,
in relationships,
in confidence.
and in opportunity.
When a student slips through the cracks because their burnout is ignored,
That is not a lack of effort.
that is lack of support.
When a young person feels embarrassed for seeking therapy,
That is not weakness.
that is in fact stigma.
When mental health education is treated as optional,
That is not oversight.
that is in fact systemic failure.
And that is why today matters.
Because today is not about pretending the crisis does not exist,
It is about confronting it,
naming it,
questioning it.
and transforming it.
This youth summit exists because healing cannot happen where silence survives.
And silence has survived for far too long.
For too long, mental health has been treated as a side issue.
When in reality, it intersects with education itself,
Public health,
social equity,
human rights,
human dignity.
mental well-being is not a niche concern
It is a foundational concern.
because schools cannot truly be safe spaces if students are forced to navigate internal battles alone with them.
And education cannot truly be equitable if psychological struggles become educational disadvantages.
Today, we gather here because youth voices are essential to this very reality.
Not later,
Not when we are older,
not when someone else gives us permission.
it is now.
Because youth are not simply inheritors of a very broken system.
We are the very challengers of them.
We're not here to politely accept harmful norms,
We are here to interrogate them,
to ask why shame exists,
to ask who benefits from this silence,
to ask why policy often lags behind the actual lived reality.
and to ask how we can do better.
Because we must do better.
And not only for ourselves,
But for every student who has ever felt isolated,
every young person who has missed class because it all got too heavy,
every child who have been denied a listening ear.
and every human being who deserves empathy without condition,
Today is about replacing shame with knowledge,
fear with confidence,
whispers with advocacy.
and silence with solution.
But let us also remember
Breaking stigma is not just about speaking louder,
it is about speaking smarter,
with empathy,
with evidence,
with policy awareness,
and with inclusivity,
and with the courage to challenge not only institutions,
but also everyday attitudes.
because sometimes Stigma is not only written in policy gaps,
It is embedded in jokes,
in discursive comments at home,
in outdated traditions,
in competitive school environments.
in the normalization of stress.
So today, we do more than to host a summit.
We create disruption.
We create dialogue
We create space
for stories,
for research
for solutions.
and for leadership.
Because leadership is not only about authority,
It is about responsibility,
the responsibility to change silence,
the responsibility to educate,
the responsibility to advocate.
and the responsibility to imagine systems that serves everyone better.
To every participant here today, your voice matters.
Your ideas matter,
Your lived experiences matter.
and your courage to engage in this conversation today matters so much more deeply.
Because every meaningful social transformation begins the same day.
Someone decides that silence is no longer acceptable,
So today, together, let us decide
that silence is no longer acceptable,
that shame is no longer acceptable
that isolation is no longer acceptable.
and that stigma has no place in the future we are building.
Let us build schools where mental health well being is standard,
Policies where emotional health is prioritized,
communities where support replaces judgment.
and conversations where honesty replaces fear.
And that is exactly why we all are here today.
That is why this summit matters.
And this is why youth leadership it is not optional.
It is, in fact, essential.
Thank you for being here.
Thank you for listening to both of us.
Thank you for caring enough to question.
And thank you for believing that real change begins when voice rises.
And it is now our immense honor
And true privilege,
to begin the summit with our inaugural address.
so please join me in warmly welcome Anam, whose words and leadership will help guide today's journey from silence.
To solutions. Let's now talk about the rules. To ensure our 21 speaker marathon remains impactful, professional, and seamless, all participants are required and requested to follow these expanded guidelines. Your cooperation helps us maintain the gravity and grace that this topic deserves. First, each participant in the summit, your camera must remain on the entire duration of the event.
Second, active speaking. When you are floor ready, ensure you are looking directly into the lens. Because the camera is off, will not be given the floor.
Third, the 4 minute limit. This is a hard cap. To be fair to all the 20 other speakers, Twinkle, our team member, will raise her hand at 3 minutes of your speech, expecting you to wrap up within the next minute. Should it breach the 4 minutes mark, Twinkle will call out for conclusion to the respective speaker.
Next, the 7 minute engagement pulses. To keep a collective energy high during this long marathon, we will be launching interactive live polls and questions every 7 minutes. Active participation is the key. Your immediate voices and responses will improve our overall engagement on YouTube and show how closely we are together building this project.
Fourth, the halfway mark, fact versus myth. Right at the midpoint of our summit, we will pause our speaker lineup for highly engaging fact versus myth presentation by Sargam. This will be a core segment of the event, and Sargam will very clearly break down all the rules, specific rules of how to participate in right before we begin.
Next, the transition. When the moderator introduces you, begin immediately. Do not spend excessive time on formal greetings, dive straight into your speech.
7. Lightning and framing. Ensure light clearly hits your point. face and not your back. Position on or books, whatever is needed. Avoid scenic shots. We want to see your eyes and expressions clearly.
Also, your background. Use a clean, neutral background. Avoid virtual backgrounds unless they are high quality, as they can sometimes cut off your features during movement.
Ninth, no written policy. Do not read from a Word document or a paper. Use bulleted cues. Moves people and script does not.
Next, language and
You are not speaking. Even a small cough or background noise can pull the active speaker focus away from the presenting.
the chat box protocol. Use the Zoom chat to encourage fellow speakers like great point or totally agree. However, refrain from side conversations that might distract you from the overall event.
Next, emergency handling. If your internet cuts out, do not panic. Rejoin the link immediately. The moderator will move on to the next speaker and will come back once your connection is stable.
Social sharing. We encourage you to take a selfie with the Zoom screen and share it on your socials using the event hashtag to further amplify our reach. Well, thank you, Anna. To set up our 21 speaker marathon into motion, it is my very privilege to invite our first speaker who brings a sharp, commercial, and entrepreneurial mindset to the table. She's a BCom student at DU, aspiring CA, and currently serves as the Chief Marketing Officer at 3PM. Please welcome to the screen and give you the homage.
Oh, are you there?
Hello, hello. Am I audible? Hello.
Yes, you are on.
Yeah. Good evening, everyone. Respected organizers, fellow speakers, uh, fellow speakers, and everyone who has joined us live today. Uh, First of all, I would like to thank the We Citizen Foundation and the Policy Advisory and Research Team of sarkarischool.in for having me as a speaker to speak on a topic that is mind over noise, from burnout to balance, redefining academic excellence in modern classrooms. Like, it's an incredibly relevant topic in today's world if we take it as an example, because students are in much more noise than they have been ever before. And if by noise I does I just don't mean the noise that is around or the sound that is around the students. I mean the pressure of constant outcomes. They are around, the pressure to always be productive, the pressure to keep up with social media. Yeah, there is a pressure to be on social media as well, because we can't neglect the opportunities that are connected with social media. As for the fact, this opportunity of me speaking on this topic has come from social media, from LinkedIn. I found this post and then I applied for it. The fear of missing opportunities and sometimes the unrealistic expectation of figuring it all out at the age of 18 or 20. As a student myself, I can relate to it as well. For some time or for major part of my life, I'm currently 18, and I thought that at the age of 18, I myself would uh, figure it out all. But I think that's not the case in life. You cannot figure it all in any point of time, as for my opinion, because it's not a race, it's a journey, I think. And but today success is obviously measured by numbers, the grades that you have, the internships that you are doing, the achievements that you have. But somewhere in this race, I think we forget to ask one question to ourselves, that is, how am I doing, or how better I can do, or how am I actually doing. Like, as young people, I think we also need to normalize the communication on mental stress or mental health, checking on a friend, talking about your mental health with your friends, and talking about the stress or the mental health with your friends, with your families, without feeling ashamed. I think that's the case, and these are not signs of mental weakness. I think for the fact it's a sign of mental strength, emotional strength. As you can talk to, I think it's more of a strength, emotional strength, if you can talk about your stress and your mental health with your friends. And schools and colleges should also prepare the students not only for jobs or not only for exams to get more marks or grades, but to prepare them for life, I think. And to conclude the whole discussion of mine, I would like to leave everyone with one thought, that grades may open doors, but your mental health will determine how far will you walk on that hallway. So at the end, the goal is not to have more marks in the exams or to like graduate with better marks, but the goal is to live with a good peace of mind, to be with to be with harmony with your loved ones. And I think that would be called a successful life, or one should consider that a success rather than a more of a glorious, marks or grades. That was my time. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Om, for sharing your time with us. It was a beautiful sentiment you left us with. Thank you for sharing your very diverse perspective. Now, moving forward, our next speaker is a very prominent voice in youth leadership and public media. Currently serving as a media president of DUSU, he is also a well-known voice at Sansar TV, India's official parliament challenge. It, he brings his immense experience in public speaking and communication to us. Please welcome Mr. Abhinandan Kaul.
Hi, Yusuf. Thank you so much for that introduction. And very good evening to each one of you, all the respected panelists and the attendees who are watching us online as well. Uh, I would like to begin by sincerely thanking SarkariSchool.in and the We Citizens Foundation for convening this youth summit. And I believe this is the third time that I've got the opportunity to speak on your platform. The first was, I guess, budget on a youth conclave on the budget, and then we had one on menstruation, and now we have one on mind over noise, from burnout to balance. So, at first glance, when I was reading about this topic, burnout, it often appeared to me, and it appears to others as well, to be a sort of an individual experience. And we tend to locate it within, a student's own personal struggle or their own exam pressure or emotional fatigue and so on. But if we pause and if we look more carefully, what we are actually dealing with is not just individual distress. It is a pattern that is becoming increasingly structural in nature. And that forces us to ask a much deeper question. It is not only about how much students are studying or what kind of pressures that they are facing, but it is about the kind of system that we have built around studying, around academics and education itself. It is about how we are defining success, how we measure learning, and ultimately what we believe education is meant to produce. Because education is never just about academic outcomes. It is also about shaping attention, about shaping temperament, about the ability to engage with the world in a very stable and meaningful way. So long before this modern psychology that we see begin studying attention and cognition and different issues, uh, Indian philosophical thought, it had already placed the human mind at the center of learning and development. The Bhagavad Gita, for example, it speaks about equanimity, and it says that equanimity is yoga. And then the Yoga Sutras of Patanjali, it defines yoga as the quieting of the fluctuations of the mind. So, in that sense, the mind was never seen as a passive receiver of knowledge. It was seen as the very condition for knowledge itself. And that naturally brings us to the question that is deeply relevant today, whether our education systems are still aligned with this particular understanding, or whether somewhere along the way we have begun to sort of confuse academic rigor and education with cognitive overload. Now, this question is not abstract anymore. It's visible in classrooms, in coaching centers, universities, competitive environments, and across our nation and across the world. Most of us are students here. It's very relatable. Uh, and pressure, we can relate to this, that pressure is no longer occasional. It is sort of continuous. You graduate from school, you go into college, you have pressure. Then you get enter into job. When the education stage ends, even then we have pressure. And then evaluation itself is also no longer periodic. It is constant. You're constantly judged on what you continuously do. A speaker before me also mentioned about FOMO and about how many internships that you do. That is something that affects us. And therefore, performance is no longer something that I believe just students do. It often becomes something that students feel they are, right? You start judging yourself based upon what all you have done. And when that happens, stress, it stops being an interruption in learning. It sort of becomes place. And when stress becomes part of that environment, it stops being an individual condition. It becomes an ecosystem. So once we recognize it as an ecosystem, we can no longer explain it only through the personal resilience or individual coping mechanisms. We have to look at data, we have to look at institutions, and also at global patterns. And across the world, this pattern is increasingly visible. For instance, the World Health Organization, it is estimated that a significant proportion of adolescents globally, they experience mental health conditions, with anxiety and depression among some of the leading concerns. UNICEF has similarly pointed to a growing role of academic pressure, social comparison, digital exposure in shaping adolescent stress. And in India as well, there are multiple studies and institutional reports that indicate this very concerning trend. So, burnout, therefore, is no longer treated as a deviation from the system. It is often now something that students are expected to pass through because it's become a sort of a norm. And the moment that happens, the conversation shifts. It is no longer about individual students adjusting better. It becomes about whether the system itself needs a rethinking. So that brings us to a more uncomfortable but necessary issue. Why is this happening? Now, over the years, many education systems, including our own, they have gradually begun to optimize themselves around measurable outputs, marks, ranks, cutoffs, and these standardized performance indicators. They have now become the dominant language of success. Now, this has certainly brought improvements. It has increased accountability, it has expanded access, and it sort of made outcomes more comparable. But here has also been an unintended shift. Education, which was once understood as a process of formation, is now increasingly experienced as a process of competition. And competition, when it becomes the dominant organizing principle, it begins to shape behavior in very specific ways. And as you know, it will increase anxiety, it will reduce your intrinsic motivation, lead to negative motivation, which is not good in the long run. And it gradually ties a student's self worth to external validation, as I mentioned earlier. Now, at this point, learning is no longer about curiosity. In most of the cases, it sort of becomes about survival within the system of comparison, of opportunities. And this is where the imbalance begins to emerge. Not because the assessments are wrong, definitely not because of that, but because assessment has become disproportionately central as compared to the emotional and the psychological infrastructure that is required to support it. So, at this stage, a natural question would arise. Even if we accept that stress exists, why should it be treated as a policy or an institutional concern? Now, the answer to this lies in understanding how learning actually happens. Cognitive science has consistently shown that sustained, stress, it impairs your attention, it impairs your memory formation, your decision-making ability, and it's something that even I personally experienced because I graduated back in 2022, and I started preparing for some competitive examinations, UPSC and others. And the way that I thought I can do it is by isolating myself and sort of cutting myself out and just focusing on the studies. And that eventually led to sustained stress because we all humans, we're social animals. And if we don't interact, with others, it will definitely lead to some subconscious stress. And that eventually impaired my attention and memory formation. It sort of made me, I'd say, less efficient in, educating myself and in comprehending what I was studying. But eventually, when I joined law school in Delhi University in 2025, that thing completely changed. So this means that mental health is something that is not external to education. It is internal to it. It is the core of education. And if we move from the individual to the system level, the implications will become more significant, because international research, including work by organizations like the OECD, they have repeatedly shown that there's a strong link between the student well-being, educational attainment, and the long-term productivity outcomes for the entire economy. So, in other words, societies that ignore mental well-being in education are not just creating personal distress amongst their population, but they're limiting their own human capital formation. And for a country like India, where the demographic dividend and advantage as we know it is still very active, this becomes especially very important, because demography, it will create opportunity, but it is the mental well-being that will determine that whether this opportunity translates into capability and economic outcomes or not. So this is a global phenomena, as I mentioned earlier. So therefore, it is also very important that when we decide what should be done in India, we should first look at what different systems are doing to adapt with this challenge. So, for example, we have countries like Finland, Norway. In those countries, education systems have deliberately reduced the excessive testing procedures and that the pressure that comes with it, while investing heavily in student welfare structures within the schools. So the idea is to not to just reduce academic depth that will be sustained, but to protect the cognitive sustainability to enter into that academic depth. And then there are countries in the global south, like say Singapore, which has reforms such as teach less and learn more, which reflects a conscious shift from excessive rote learning pressure towards deeper learning and socio-economic development. And then we have United Kingdom, where the schools, they have mental health support teams which are integrated with classrooms. We have Australia, which has adopted a whole school well-being framework where mental health is not treated as a separate service, but as a very important and embedded part of teaching and school culture. And even countries like Japan, I mean, countries like Japan, it is something that where academic discipline is traditionally very strong, as it's seen in India as well. But there as well, there is an increasing emphasis on classroom belonging, on moral education, and structured emotional development rather than just rote learning. So, what is common across these systems? It's not the absence of academic ambition, it is the recognition that ambition cannot be sustained without the well being infrastructure. So, now when we look at the Indian context, we see that the National Education Policy back in 2020, it was released. It marks a sort of an important shift in the traditional thinking, the traditional way of education here. It explicitly moves towards more holistic education, multidisciplinary learning, and the reduction of excessive exam-centric pressure. It also has one of the goals to emphasize on the importance of social emotional learning and life skills, and it tries to bring in an experiential pedagogy. But with these policy transformations, the real challenge, it lies in implementation, the shift from the traditional systems that have been here for the past 60, 70 years. And once we move from policy design to the lived reality of classrooms, we also begin to see a clear gap between the intention of schemes and of such initiatives of the government and the true experience. And it is precisely, I believe, this gap that where the real question emerges. Not what education should look like on paper, but what it must look like in practice. And that sort of brings us to what India can realistically do, not just in theory, but within the constraints on and the complexities of our own system. So the contours of this problem are fairly understood. We all are students. I also briefly, explained about what issues are being faced in the education system. So the more important question now is, what does a workable response look like in a system as large, as diverse, and as complex as ours? So India is not dealing with a single classroom model. It is dealing with multiple realities at once. We have government schools, we have private schools, we have coaching ecosystems, urban rural divides, and a highly uneven access to counseling and support. So any response has to be multi-layered rather than single point. So first of all, at the school level, the first shift has to be towards integrating emotional well-being into the everyday functioning of education rather than treating it as an external service. So this means moving beyond occasional awareness sessions to structured systems of schools, school counseling, even if it is shared or cluster based in resource constrained districts. I mean, multiple schools can come together and collaborate. And it also means in investing in teacher training as well, because teachers are the source of all information that students have, a guide in the school setup. And this training should also not be just in pedagogy, but in basic psychological literacy, the ability to identify, say, early signs of stress and burnout among students or disengagements, and how to respond with sensitivity rather than escalation. And at the assessment level, there is also scope for gradual redesign. I mean, the intent here would not be to dilute academic rigor, but to reduce the over dependence on single high stakes examinations like boards or CUET and so on. So more continuous competency based evaluations. They are already envisioned within the NEP 2020, but it needs stronger implementation and support so that learning is assessed as a process and not just as a moment, as one exam that you have to give and you have to clear. And at the ecosystem level, especially in the context of coaching institutions, there is also need for a more balanced culture around preparation. And this doesn't mean external regulation alone. It also means setting norms, around study hours, around rest cycles, mental health breaks, particularly during the peak exam sessions, so that the preparation does not become synonymous with exhaustion in the minds of the students. And then finally, at the public health interface, I'll just conclude. At the public health interface, India has already had the beginnings of a framework through initiatives under community health and school health programs. Now we have to strengthen this linkage so that adolescent mental health is sort of not treated separately from education policy, but is also part of a unified approach. And this can make support, more accessible and less stigmatized. And another aspect that a speaker before me had pointed out was the digital layer, how we are in an attention economy, how we are constantly comparing ourselves, how we get this FOMO. So this, the result of this is not just sort of distraction that, you're scrolling through reels and watching content online, but it's also a constant background pressure of comparison, where attention is very fragmented and self-worth, it becomes very externalized. So when this combines with the already intense academic pressure, it creates not just stress, but also a continuous sense of inadequacy, a continuous sense of not being happy with yourself. So I believe that this can be solved by disconnecting a bit from technology. Instead, we can build sort of digital resilience along with academic resilience. Disconnecting is not just the solution. So we can sort of integrate digital awareness into schooling, not just how to use technology, but how teaching students as how it shapes attention, how students should deal with issues of comparison and self-image. So the goal here, that is basically because the goal here is not to reject the digital world, but it's to ensure that it does not define the terms on which young people measure themselves. So to conclude this conversation, I'd say that the discussions that we'll have here today and that I had presented here today is not just about making education easier. It's about making education much more humane without making it rigorous. We have to make it less rigorous, and we also have to make it much more humane. And we began with the question of burnout, but what we have really been tracing is something much deeper. The way systems, the way expectations, the way environments, they all come together and they shape the human mind in the moments of learning. From classrooms to coaching centers to policy frameworks like the NEP 2020 to digital ecosystems that students now constantly inhabit and are used to, we are dealing with a single continuum of pressure and perception. And therefore, the response to it also cannot be fragmented. It has to be systematic, it has to be thoughtful and sustained, because ultimately, education is not only about the transfer of knowledge, it is about the formation of the mind that receives, that processes, and that carries that very knowledge forward. And that is why the Upanishadic insight, it remains very relevant today. The mind is the cause of both bondage and liberation. That is what the Upanishads teach us. So therefore, if the mind is central to both limitation and possibility, then education must be understood as the process that protects and strengthens that very instrument. And that brings us back where we started. Academic excellence cannot be separated from mental well-being. Digital environments cannot be separated from learning environments, and policy intent cannot be separated from lived experience. So if we are able to align these layers, these systems, institutions, and environments, then I think that education will no longer be experienced as a cycle of pressure alone. It will become what it was always meant to be, a space where capability is built without exhaustion, a space where we have ambition which does not come at the cost of your mental balance, your life balance. And in that sense, the real transformation we are being asked to make, it is not only in the way that we how we teach things, but it is in the way how we think about the human mind itself. So with that, I'd like to conclude my talk. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Abhinandan, for your thorough analysis on linking the system with the individual. I would like to ask everybody to use your opportunity to engage with the questions on the chat box to make this interaction even more interactive. Also, I would like to see everybody. I would like to see everybody open their cameras and stay until the end for a group photograph. And with that, up next, we have another DU graduate. We have a political science graduate, a speaker who bridges research with real life action. She is a published researcher and author on gender and policy, and a highly recognized youth leader with international delegate experience at the BRICS Youth Forum and the Asia Pacific Leaders Summit. Let's welcome to the floor Sanskriti Singh.
Thank you
Sanskriti,
so much.
here
Am
you
I
go.
audible and visible?
Yes, you are.
Thank you so much for your great introduction and a very pleasant good evening to everyone present here. So I'll start very quickly because I was waiting that, okay, when we can continue this discussion. So let me begin with a question. How many of us have celebrated a student's marks but never asked how much sleep, how much social interaction they have lost to achieve them? Think on that, and I'll definitely be coming to this answer at the end of my talk. This single question captures the crisis of the modern education. Today, we live in a world where students are most connected than they can be ever before. Yet, many feel increasingly isolated. We have smart classrooms, AI powered learning platforms, unlimited educational resources, mobile phone, net everywhere. But we are witnessing an unprecedented level of stress, anxiety, and burnout among the people. As my fellow speaker just quoted, that even World Health Organization estimates that 1 in 7 adolescents globally lives with a mental health condition, while a depression and anxiety account for a significant proportion of illness among young people. If we talk about India, the National Mental Health Survey highlights that a substantial number of adolescents experience emotional distress, yet only a small fraction receives professional support. Behind every statistic that is a student is silent and is struggling to keep up with this pace, the fast going pace and the world. The problem is not that students are weak. The problem is that we have mistaken constant performance for genuine excellence. Somewhere along the way, education shifted from nurturing curiosity to rewarding the comparison. We celebrate perfect scores, but really perseverance. We measure intelligence through examinations, rewards, but seldom acknowledge resilience, empathy, or creativity. The very qualities that define a successful leaders in the world. Burnout does not happen because students are incapable or maybe they are not understanding. It happens because expectations often exceed the support system available to that is actually available to them. So, how can we redefine the academic excellence? Number one, in my opinion, we must redefine success itself. A student's or a I would like to also quote aspirants' worth should never be determined solely by the grades or by the results that they are gaining. Academic achievement is an important and integral part for everyone, and I completely agree to that. But so are emotional well being, ethical leadership, collaboration, and critical thinking is. Schools, university, institutes should assess holistic development alongside academic performance too. Second, mental health must come preventive and not reactive. Instead of waiting until students reach a crisis, institutions should introduce regular well-being check-ins, train counselors, peer support programs, and there are many more ways mental literacy can be promoted as an integral part of education. Seeking help should be viewed as strength and not as weakness. And finally, I would like to say we must use technology very wisely. Artificial intelligence offers remarkable opportunities for personalized learning, but it should also use to identify early signs of academic disengagement or excessive workload, which many of us are facing right now. Technology must support human well being, not replace human connection. Finally, every classroom should become a space where students feel psychologically safe to ask questions, make mistakes, and grow. Research cons- researchers basically shows that students perform better when they experience belonging, encouragement, and supportive learning environments. I would here like to quote Nelson Mandela that he mentioned, education is the most powerful weapon which you can use to change the world. But education can only change the world if it does not break the people who are going to receive it. So today, I invite all of us who's watching us, who's listening to us, and all my panelists who's there, educators, parents, policymakers, and the students, to move from a culture of pressure to a culture of purpose. Because true academic excellence is not creating students who can barely and merely pass examinations. It is creating young people who can think independently, lead compassionately, adapt confidently, and live meaningfully. So let us ensure that our classrooms does not only produce high achievers, but healthy minds. With this, I would like to conclude today's session by answering the question that next time when you see an aspirant, a student, before asking them that how well did that perform and how was your this attempt, ask them how have you been and how is the preparation going on. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Shruti, for your time. This is the exact sort of discussion I expect, which can take this discourse further. So, from one
Thank you.
Sanskriti to another, we now move on to the fourth, which is Sanskriti Jain. Today, we present the raw and the vital energy of young students entering their next big chapter. A recent high school graduate and a determined CMA aspirant who is very passionate about advocacy, well-being, and uh, creating inclusive learning. Please welcome Sanskriti. Sanskriti, you have the floor.
Hello, am I visible and audible?
Yes, you are.
All right. A very good evening to the respected dignitaries, honored guests, and my fellow change makers. Before I begin, I'd like to thank Sarkari School for giving me this opportunity to be here today. It's truly a privilege to be part of this conversation. I am Sanskriti, a recent higher secondary graduate and a registered CMA Foundation student. Like many students, I have experienced the pressure, expectations, and uncertainty that often accompany today's academic journey. Every student knows the phrase, all the best. But somewhere along the way, we started believing that being the best mattered more than being well. So I ask you, if academic excellence leaves students mentally exhausted, is it really excellence? After class 12th, I thought the pressure would finally end. But after the boards came entrance exams, then admissions, and now my journey as a CMA Foundation student. That's when I realized something. Life doesn't get easier after one exam. The question paper simply changes. Competition isn't the problem. It motivates us to grow. The problem begins when the comparison replaces learning, when marks become our identity, and when success is measured only by a report card. That is where excellence quietly turns into burnout. The good news is that the conversations around the students' mental well being are growing, and our government, schools, and educators are talking about it and taking important steps in the right direction. But real change doesn't happen through policies alone, it happens in the classrooms, homes, and everyday conversations. If we don't hesitate to visit a doctor when our body is unwell, why should we hesitate to seek help when our mind is struggling? Mental well being deserves the same care. Schools should make counseling accessible and create spaces where students feel heard. Teachers should be trained to recognize the early signs of burnout. Parents should ask, how are you feeling as often as how was your exam? And students must remember that seeking help is not a sign of weakness, it is a sign of strength. As a CMA Foundation student, I have learned that consistency is stronger than constant pressure and balance is more sustainable than burnout. Education should not only create high scorers, it should nurture resilient, compassionate, and emotionally healthy individuals. So, let us redefine academic excellence not as the ability to survive pressure, but as the ability to grow without losing ourselves. When we choose resilience over comparison, balance over burnout, and purpose over pressure, we truly put mind over noise. Thank you.
Thank you, Sanskriti, for really providing the youth in this youth conference. To round up our first five blocks of speakers, our next and final speaker for this block is another political creator, and a civil servant based in New Delhi. He currently is a social media content creator at the Better India and a policy research intern at the Samira Policy Institute. Please welcome to the floor, Shreya Ved. Shreya, are you with us?
We can move on to the next one while I call upon the present one.
Right. I'll hand over the floor to Rashi Singh to guide us into our next segment. Rashi, the stage is all yours.
Okay, thank you, Yusuf. So, good evening, everyone. My name is Rashi. I'll be moderating from here. So, without any further ado, I would like to invite our next speaker. He is a law student at Dr. Ram Manohar Lohia National Law University, Lucknow, with a strong academic record and a growing portfolio of leadership and extracurricular experience, including his current role as Deputy Director General for CMS Mahanagar MUN 2025. Moot Court participation and prior work as a student council coordinator and campus magazine editor, reflecting his aspiration to build a career in law and public service. Please welcome Devarchit Singh.
Hi, am I audible and visible?
Yes, you are.
Okay. Good evening, everyone, respected organizers and fellow members. Firstly, I'd like to thank the Sakari School team for giving this opportunity to speak today and present my views. I want to begin with not a statistic, but because that is what our school instinct trains in. A few weeks ago, while preparing for my competition, I found myself reading a judgment that had nothing to do with my competition and everything to do why I'm here today. The case is Sukhdev Saha versus the state of Rajasthan. In this case, there was a 17-year-old NEET aspirant referred to in the judgment only as Miss X, who died after a fall from her hostel building in a coaching hub in Visakhapatnam. Her father came to the Supreme Court not for compensation, but for a fair investigation. What the court gave him was something much larger. On the 25th of July, it was held that the right to mental health is an inseparable part of the right to life under Article 21 of the Constitution. Hello everyone, I am Devachit Singh, a second year law student studying at Dr. Ram Manohar Lohia, National Law University, Lucknow. And we are trained to ask one question before any other. Is this right justiciable? Can a person actually walk into court and enforce it, or is it simply a promise in the gazette? Right? I want to walk you through why India's framework for child and student mental health has years struggled with the exactly same question and why I believe something genuinely changed 11 months ago. On paper, India is not short of protective law. Mental Health Care Act 2017 was historic in its own right. It decriminalized attempted suicide. Section 18 guaranteed the right to access mental health services as affordable and of good quality. Also, Act 26, Children from Abuse, Right to Persons and Disabilities Act 2016, Children from Psychological Disabilities, and the National Education Policy explicitly commits to reducing the weight of high stakes sort examinations in favor of continuous and competency based assessment. This is genuinely a sophisticated legal architecture. And yet, as any first year student learns very quickly, a right without any enforcement mechanism is not a right. It is just a recommendation. The Mental Health Care Act of 2017 for all listeners was built and was written to govern the mental health establishment and training. It does not, on its own text, place binding obligations on schools supporting fitting. The Amendment Act has also tried to close this gap, but has still not been. The coaching center guidelines exist, but the guidelines are not law, and they are not binding on precisely the gap the data has been screaming about. According to the National Crime Records Bureau's own report, India recorded over 13,000 suicides last year, and was more than the double the figure. The Lok Sabha reply has also revealed over 100 students died by suicides in IITs. aims alone. Institutions, like by definition, house the country's highest academic achievement. Burnout, in other words, does not discriminate based on merit. Anything it does, fortunately find the most successful among us. This is why schools matters so much in the present situation. Simply put, something that's completely right, identified, listening to, and still being the same way in 1997 in Visakhapatnam, in the state of when the parliament had no law on the workplace sexual harassment, and the court built one judicial guidelines under Article 1. Supreme Saha again, and Nath and Sandeep invoked same Vishaka guidelines again, drawing on the Article 21 that had already recognized psychological autonomy as a part of human dignity. Court issued 15 binding guidelines applicable to every educational institution in India, be schools, colleges, universities, hospitals, coaching centers, until the parliament enacts. I say this as someone who respects judgment enormously. Judicial guidelines are, by their own expression, as interim acts. They are powerful, but they are also silent. Depend on compliance affidavits on district magistrates already overworked, or state governments trying rules within deadlines, which district officers are often not. Court itself called this intervening before Parliament acts. We have been in similar situations before. Shaka guidelines lasted 16 years. The 2015 POSH Act finally applied them into ordinary legislation. 16 years. 16 years is a long time to leave a fundamental right resting on its judicial improvisation. The question this is asking is not does the law exist, law increasingly does exist. The question is what happens in the gap between the Supreme Court directive and the teacher's actual Monday morning. Firstly, as a law student and young researchers, we are uniquely positioned to track implementation and not just legislation. Monitoring committees are required to exist in every district of this judgment. How many actually do? I question how many actually do. This is not an abstract policy question. It is a verifiable, RTIable fact. National Student-led audit of compliance, the kind of thing that legal aid clinics and law school students are built for, could do more than just enforcement or just another seminar on the importance of mental health. The NEP's promise of format low-stake assessment needs to stop being treated as a five-year-old aspiration and start being read as a binding policy guideline that schools and hostels are expected to operationalize now and not eventually. None of what I have said today is an argument for lowering the bar. Law school does not teach us to seek comfort instead of competition. It teaches us the strongest arguments are the ones built to survive under pressure. But the difference between pressure that sharpens you and the pressure that breaks you. And our institutions, for too long, refuse to let the two up. We finally have a judgment that students' mental health is not just a matter of charity or convenience. Constitutional guarantee as enforceable as a right. What we owe that judgment is not applause, but we owe it implementation. I would end with a quote from Ariana Huffington, who was a woman who built one of the most influential media companies in the world and who collapsed from exhaustion while doing it. Well-being isn't the opposite of success, it's an integral part of it. And fearlessness isn't the absence of fear, it's the mastery of fear. It's all about getting up one more time than you fall down. Thank you so much. Jai Hind.
Thank you, Devachit, for giving us your insightful data and stats on this topic and to make us understand how serious the situation is and the area where we have to work on. Moving further, we have our next speaker. She is a WES certified elementary math educator based in Pune, currently a teaching professional at the Akansha Foundation since 2018. With prior experience as a pre-primary school teacher at Euro School and RIMS International School, and a Bachelor of Education from Savitri Bai Phule, Pune University, dedicated to nurturing curiosity and problem-solving skills in young learners through an inclusive classroom environment. Please welcome Juhi Anand.
Thank you so much, Rashmi. Good evening, everyone. I hope I'm audible.
Yes, you are.
Okay. It's wonderful to see so many curious young minds and passionate educators and change makers coming together to build a bridge between from burnout to balance. By default, we often celebrate high scores, perfect lesson plans, non negotiable achievements, but we forgot to ask at what cost. We really stop to think what we are doing right now. Do actually we are just going towards a burnout, or we are going towards excellence? When teachers are exhausted and students are overwhelmed, we are not nurturing excellence, we are normalizing burnout. As an educator, I feel exhausted, not when my students are making mistakes, but when I see my students are just merely completing the task without truly engaging in learning. If my classroom is not buzzed with questions, feedback, curiosity, reflective questions, feedback, engaging, they have curious mind, they want to create something, I know something I am missing there. Then what I need to ask, if excellence costs us our well being, is it truly a excellence? Are our classroom creating obedient learners or independent thinkers? Are we rewarding silence? Are we creating a space for creativity? Are we creating independent thinkers or problem solvers? So, this is the time we need to think. Research in even educational psychology also it shows that teacher well-being and student well-being are totally interconnected. When teachers when teacher flourish, and it is students, it impact our students also. When students become more engaged, creative and academically successful, then it shows that they both are in balance. This vision is truly aligns with our national education policy, which encourages holistic, competency based, flexible and joyful learning instead of rote memorization and excessive academic pressure. So today we need to make a shift from compliance to creativity. A classroom buzzed with innovation, collaboration, creativity, where children are getting an opportunity to think, ask something which not they are keeping with themselves now, but they're going to carry forward with their whole life. So we need to make the shift right now. The shift, the focus from marks to mastery, replacing excessive compliance to the student voice and choice, building classrooms where questions are valued, where each student feel that they belong here. We need to integrate reflection, collaboration, and experiential learning into everyday teaching. Most important, prioritizing teachers' well-being because it directly impacts our students. Balanced teachers only can create balanced learners. Here I really want to think that my experience as a teacher, I feel that I always by the end of the class, if my classroom had all these components, I feel satisfied. And same way my children also answer the same way, ki didi, I did today, I felt really good today, I felt that I am a part of a class, I felt valued, I felt respected, I got a chance to think something, create something. So I would like to leave here with a quote by William Butler, that education is not the filling of a pail, but the lighting of a fire. Academic excellence is not about creating children who simply follow instructions. We actually do not like quiet classroom. We do not like just simple learners. We want a learner who can innovate, who can think, who can imagine, who can collaborate, who can lead with empathy. So let us move towards from burnout to balance, because the best classroom don't just create successful students, it should create happy, healthy, and future ready human beings. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Juhi, and thank you for emphasizing on the questioning part, that how important as a children for us to question things. And if you're not questioning, then there is something wrong with the entire system. So really appreciate that you mentioned that particular topic.
Thank you
Moving
so much.
further, our next speaker, she is a public policy analyst based in Amritsar. I'm so sorry. Yeah. So he's a public policy analyst based in Amritsar, currently an associate at Rebounds and previously at the International Institute of SDGs and Public Policy Research, with experience co-authoring policy briefs and research papers on topics like women's health and India-EU relations. He's also a long-time UPSC aspirant with a strong grounding in governance and public policy, and brings entrepreneurial experience from 7 years running chlorophyll pharmaceuticals. Please welcome Upper Singh. I think he is not there in the meet. Upper, are you there? Okay, then I'll move to the next speaker. She's an undergraduate psychology student at Pillai College of Arts, Commerce, and Science, aspiring to become a child and counseling psychologist with a strong interest in child development, emotional well being, and mental health awareness, bringing empathy, communication skills, and leadership experience gained through academic and hands on work with children and groups. Please welcome Snehal Kanginkar.
Hello, everyone. Good evening, everyone, dear respected guests, distinguished educators, speakers, and all participants. I would like to sincerely thank organizers and to that one friend who nominated my name to speak on such an important topic. Now, I would like to begin with a simple question. What is academic excellence? For many people, it means high marks, top ranks, and academic achievements. But today, we'll think beyond this. Imagine a classroom where students are waiting for examination to begin. Some students are confident, some are nervous, and some are silently thinking, what if I fail? What if I disappoint my parents? What if I'm not good enough? During my internship, I observed a young child with an autism spectrum disorder. He was participating in a balance beam activity. The child repeated my instruction understandably because of echolalia and slowly repeated my instruction and completed the activity step by step. When the child successfully completed and finished the task, everyone applauded. Now, my question is, if we celebrate every small milestones in a child development center, then why do we often forget to celebrate progress when children enter into mainstream schools? At that moment, nobody was thinking about marks or rankings. We were celebrating effort, confidence, and encourage the progress. That experience taught me a lesson I will never forget. हर बच्चे की जीत अलग अलग होती है. किसी के लिए 95% लाना जीत है और किसी के लिए पहले बार एक आगे कदम बढ़ाना जीत है. Every child learns differently, grows differently, and succeeds differently. Unfortunately, many students today are experiencing academic burnout, and mark my words, burnout is not laziness. It is emotional, mental, and physical exhaustion created by continuous pressure, competitions, comparison, and unrealistic expectations. Now, students are expected to perform well in school, coaching classes, curricular activities, and social life, and all at the same time. As a result, many children feel overwhelmed, anxious, and emotionally exhausted. So, how do we move from burnout to balance? I would like to suggest four practical recommendations. First is mental health first aid training for teachers. Yes, I'm saying teachers because teachers are the first. They spend a significant amount of time with students and are often the first to notice changes in behaviors or emotional well-being of students. While children are not expected to become while teachers are not expected to become psychologists, they should receive basic training to identify signs of stress, anxiety, burnout, bullying, etc., and know how to support students effectively. Secondly, well-being periods in school classes, school timetables. Now, just as schools have periods for mathematics, science, they should also have dedicated sessions that focus on emotional well-being, stress management, self-esteem, resilience, and healthy coping skills. Mental health should be a regular part of education and not just a conversation reserved only for difficult times. Third is the progress based recognition instead of only marks based recognitions. Schools should celebrate improvement, efforts, creativity, leadership, kindness, teamwork, perseverance alongside with academic performance. Now, when we recognize growth instead of only perfection, students become more confident and motivated. Fourth is student well being and peer support communities. Now, schools should encourage student-led support groups where students can discuss concerns, promote inclusions, prevent bullying, support one another. Sometimes a student find it easier to talk to a friend before approaching an adult. And I would like to also include that parents are also an important plays an important role. Some children do not need another lecture about marks. They simply need someone to ask, beta tum theek ho na, and genuinely listen to the answer. As a psychology student, I strongly believe that mental health is not separate from education. Mental health is the foundation of education. I would like to conclude with a simple thought that a report card can tell us how a child performed in the exam, but it cannot measure courage, resilience, kindness, confidence, or hope. So let's create classrooms where we create healthy minds, kind hearts, and bigger future for our nation. Thank you.
Thank you, Snehal, for your insightful remarks and to emphasize on how certain reforms a school can take to, you know, eradicate with these problems and to help the children. Moving further, our next speaker, she is a Master of Public Policy student at NLSIU Bengaluru with a political science background from Delhi University and diverse research experience spanning a fellowship on law enforcement and policing at the Takshashila Institution, an internship at the Ministry of External Affairs and research roles at Azim Premji University and Sara Services, reflecting interest in politics, governance, and social issues alongside a personal passion for art and teaching. Please welcome Avasthi B. Surendran.
Yeah, good evening, everyone. I hope I'm audible.
Yes, you are.
Yeah, thank you. And I'm glad to be here and to discuss about pedagogy and the topic itself about burnout and balance. And I would like to talk about my experiences, especially from Saral services that I had, because I think it's more relevant in this context. Because despite having done research roles and volunteering, I think the rural immersion, the brief experience that I had, that really was eye opening for me in a lot of ways, how rural schools work. So we went as a 4-member team and conducted field assessments and for a remedial learning initiative. Right. So it was at 10 government middle schools, and we carried out comparative analysis of the practices, institutional practices, and the student learning. So the whole school ecosystem was mapped. We talked to teachers, students, the community itself, and the parents. So that gave us insights about how the school operates, its evolution, and the different aspects. So, first of all, I would like to discuss the different stakeholders which are involved. Firstly, when we talk about students, so children are willing to study even when circumstances don't permit. And even when the learning environment is not conducive, they have familial responsibilities, they have chores, they have tuitions, they juggle all this with care work, taking care of siblings, and even like at a broader level, caste inequalities also get very apparent when we see demarcation of certain rural areas as areas for drunkards, or according to caste divisions schools are demarcated, right? And even during midday meals, how students sit together, whether they don't sit together. So all of this is part of, very much part of like how connected different aspects are, whether it's sociological, psychological, political, economic. So we need to understand it in a more holistic manner. Now, in terms of school, the perception about private schools was starkly different from that of government schools, which were considered inferior and ill-equipped. Government teachers were less valued, and so NGOs had a very important role to play, like the one I worked with. They brought in creative learning things, because the regular school that they went, that was very literacy focused and not their overall holistic development. So that really helps children to interact with each other in ways that are not limited to just learning alphabets or learning just textbook related stuff, right? And I think at an institutional level, there were administrative constraints which burden the schools, right? And attempts to monitor schools also affect students in a very indirect manner. So when teacher shortages happen, teachers get overworked, they get multiple requests for there are, even when multiple requests are made for teacher appointments, infrastructure they are not met, when delayed transfer of government funds is there, or when teachers are under constant threat of suspension. So these issues are very systemic, right? And in terms of parents, we witnessed that they considered education as a means of social mobility, and even when there was fluctuating attendance because of family work and local events, all of that was like parents really considered, even if they were not educated themselves, they viewed education as a very important part of their child's life, and help to maintain regular contact with the school. And one very important thing was, we noticed, because so many, because it was the I'm talking about rural area, a village in Nalanda. So their students and families, they migrate to brick lanes, right? So uh, the children either do child labor or they accompany their families, so they have to uh, leave their school for around 6 months or 4 months, and they cannot really continue in the same school because of the migration practices. So that really hampers their education, and even when they go back to the school, like continuing gets very difficult. So these are really structural issues that have to be addressed, right? And I think I would like to conclude by talking about how even when access has been increased, quality assurance in a lot of ways has been undermined, whether it's teacher student ratio, whether it's about student subject specific teachers, or flexibility in the admission process when such migratory practices are happening, or when when there are non-functional facilities, and there's a sense of hierarchy among students, or when punitive practices are taking place, when there is a culture of violence among students or amongst teachers and students. I think that really plays a very like adverse role on the whole community itself. So with that, I would conclude. Thank you.
Thank you, Avasthi, for giving us your valuable perspective and your expertise on this topic. Also, I kindly request everyone to please switch on your cameras throughout the meet. And with that, we have finished our second set of speakers. And now I would like to hand over the proceedings to Anam. Thank you.
All right, hello everyone. I would now like to. Okay, so now we have, as promised during our house rules initially, we have officially hit a major milestone in our summit here, done with almost halfway. And to break up this entire marathon, this entire, energy that we all are carrying, we will now get actively involved in a mid-session, interactive presentation. So for that, I would now like to call upon Sargam, who will take over the floor, explain the rules, guide us all through the fact versus myth presentation. Sargam, if you're ready, the stage is all yours.
Hello, I'm audible?
Yeah.
Okay, let me present my screen.
You could begin with explaining the rules.
There's a permission issue. Host disabled attendee screen sharing.
I'll make you the co-host then, right? Okay. Done. You can now present.
Okay. Is my screen visible?
Yeah.
Okay. So hello everyone, this is Sarkam Chen, and today we are going to play a quick myth or fact game about mental health. There are many misconceptions about mental health, and these myths often create stigma and prevent people from seeking help. Today I'll read out each statement, and I want everyone to vote whether you think it's a myth or a fact in the chat box. After everyone write their answers in the chat, we'll reveal the correct answer and we'll discuss why. So please, everyone, please remain active and write your answers in the chat box. Here is the first slide. If someone is laughing and smiling, they can't be struggling with their mental health. Is it a myth or a fact?
Sargam, are you able to view the chat box?
Yeah.
All right. Okay.
So here is the correct answer. It's a myth. If someone is laughing and smiling, someone may look happy on the outside while struggling emotionally on the inside. Mental health problems are often invisible, so we should never assume someone is okay just because they appear cheerful. The next slide is stress is always bad for your mental health. Is it a myth or a fact? The correct answer is it is a myth. Not all stress is harmful. Short term stress can actually help us stay focused and motivated. However, when stress becomes constant or overwhelming, it can negatively affect both our mental and physical health. Now, here is our third slide. Sleeping too much can sometimes be a sign of a mental health problem. The correct answer is it is a fact. Oversleeping can sometimes be associated with depression or other mental health conditions. However, sleeping more doesn't automatically mean someone has a mental illness. It depends on the overall situation. Here is the fourth slide. Children under 12 years cannot develop anxiety or depression. Is it a myth or a fact? The answer is it is a myth. Mental health conditions can affect people of any age, including children. Early recognition and support can make a significant difference in their well being. Here's another one. More women are diagnosed with depression than men. Is it a myth or a fact? The answer is it is a fact. Women are diagnosed with depression more often. However, it is important to remember that men may be less likely to seek help or talk about their feelings, so many cases may go undiagnosed. Here is the next slide. People with mental illnesses can recover and live successful lives. Myth or fact? It is a fact. With proper treatment, support, and healthy coping strategies, many people manage their mental health conditions and lead happy, productive, and successful lives. Here's the seventh one. Mental health and mental illness mean the same thing. Myth or fact? This is a myth. Everyone has mental health, just like everyone has physical health. Mental illness refers to a specific diagnosable conditions that affect a person's mental health. This is the last question. Talking to a close friend is just as effective as talking to a therapist. Myth or fact? The answer is myth. Talking to a trusted friend is very valuable because they can provide emotional support and help us feel less alone. However, therapists are trained professionals who use evidence based techniques to assess and treat mental health conditions. Friends and therapists both play important but different roles. Thank you, everyone. for participating. I hope this activity helped clear up some common myths about mental health. Remember, mental health is just as important as physical health. And asking for help is a sign of strength, not weakness. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Great, that was so nice, Saram. Incredibly eye-opening, and I think it was a perfect energy boost. We needed to kind of slide through the second half of our summit. Before we begin with the next set of our speakers, I think we missed one speaker from the previous batch, and that was Apar Singh. So, Apar Singh, if you're ready now, we can have you go next. So Apar is a public policy analyst joining us from Amritsar and an associate at Rebounds with the prior research experience at the International Institute of SDGs and Public Policy Research. He's also a long-time UPSC aspirant and a pharmaceutical entrepreneur, bringing a unique blend of governance, health policy, enterprise, and with that, let's all welcome Apar.
Thank you, Anam and Yusuf, for having me, first of all, and the entire cohort for having me, the sarkarischool.in for having me here. It sometimes becomes, no pun intended, it sometimes becomes confusing with this kind of diverse background that what to do with your life. And I think a similar exposure is needed in our education system also. I would like to share a story, small story. So my cousin was married in Kolkata. So I had the chance of visiting West Bengal and the entire state. I went to Shanti Niketan, which was established by Gurudev, as we know, Rabindranath Tagore. So if you go there, you will know that 40% of the 40% of the time was devoted to the classroom work in the Shanti Niketan, and 60% was devoted to co-curricular activities. The pertinent question is, why can't we have something in our Indian education system? A similar thing, I would like to add something what Abhinandan said about the Indian philosophical tradition, that up till the Mughal era, if we go into history, so there are 4 phases of life. One is Brahmacharya, Grihast, Vanprasth, and Sannyas. So the Brahmacharya the Brahmacharya part of life is for the children. So what is it that is needed that to be taught? Now, one thing Anam missed, and although it is not there, I studied from DAV Public School, Lawrence Road, Amritsar. Meditation and yoga were the part of the school curriculum. And these are two of the very important things which children can be taught insofar as coping with their mental health mechanisms are concerned. And I have been into UPSC. I would like to highly emphasize on the fact that Indian philosophy, spiritualism, what is our role in the existence? That must be taught to children in the simplest manner possible. But I would like to add 4 more things as to what can be done for children. These are 4 recommendations in small, keeping in mind with the time. Recommendations based on what UNICEF and World Health Organization have said. First of all, we need accessible mental health services to children. That children are regularly monitored based on their performance, based on their behavior, based on the problems they are facing on mental front, especially the problems created by parents and society at large. I gave the example of Shanti Niketan. We need a healthier academic environment. Marks do not define a person, degrees do not define a person. The performance of the child defines a person. Third, coaches. Now, I am forgetting the source, but I heard somewhere 5 lakh children in India every year commit suicide. Who is responsible for this? What are the coping mechanisms that we have? For example, if you look at stress management, if you look at mindfulness, as we call in meditation, for example, you look at time management, emotional resilience. So, and there is one more thing. If you look at, we talked about competition. So competition can be done in a healthier manner by realizing the talent of the child. Someone can be good in music, someone can be good in dance, someone can be good in language, someone can be good in painting. If you look at, if I don't know if anyone has read about Pablo Picasso, Cubism. So what is Cubism essentially? Pablo Picasso used to draw multiple things in one portrait. There would be a chicken, there would be a fish, there would be a garden, or three things or more in a same portrait. Because he had visions. Lastly, we really need a supportive school culture. Teachers need to diligently look after the children. Parents need to look after the children. And if you look at this country particularly carefully, we are not doing these things. That is why tuition and coaching culture is rising in this country. So 4 points. We need accessible mental health services. We need a healthier academic environment. We need coping skills. Lastly, we need a supportive school culture because, but obvious, children are the future of the country. And it is the children, the Indian youth, who has to build this country in all spheres of life possible, not just in select sectors. Thank you.
Great. I still feel the impact of it apart. Thank you so much. That was really nice of you to bring up. Pretty invoking. Okay, so to kick off our next block of brilliant minds, our first speaker now bridges the gap between numbers, politics, and human impacts. He is an economics graduate from St. Xavier's College, Ranchi, a policy researcher, political consultant, and the founder of The Perspective, blending economics, full stack data, science, and public policy research towards a career in public service. Please welcome Nikhil Dubey. Nikhil, do we have the ears of the house? Nikhil, are you there?
Yeah. Hey, am I audible and visible?
Yeah.
Hi. Good evening, everyone. Before I start, I want all of you to picture the moment, the result, the day of result when it was supposed to come. The result, which was to decide how the family was supposed to feel that evening. And I still remember the day, and that's the reason I am here. So before any facts and behind any fact that I'm here to share, there is a face. It may be of yours. Now, you remember the character Isan from the Tare Zameen Par? He was not lazy. He was dyslexic. And the whole system, instead of treating him differently, labeled him as a failure and a broken. But the only neither his parents nor his teachers could recognize his potential. The whole system was designed in a way not to recognize the potential, but to the marks and the academic output. In addition, you still remember the character from the Three Idiots. We have all watched that movie while understood. The character like Chanchor Das, I hope I am pronouncing it right. Chanchor Das, Professor. So when Amir Khan was saying that the joy has been murdered by the institution, it was a direct and a blunt assassination on the intent of the institutional apartheid. Why I'm saying this? Because the institution has not been designed to protect you academically. It is just designed to measure the matrices which are externally designed in a way not to to make you a rote learner. And again, then there is a comparison that every Indian household is very familiar with. It is Sarma ji ka beta. And Sarma ji ka beta, he topped the board, got into IT, settled abroad. And then you start comparing yourself with the benchmark that he has already set. That benchmark is so narrow, so rigid that you start failing yourself. That you start questioning yourself where I am standing. And then this system, the system, the Sarma ji ka beta comparison, all collectively comes together and put a very heavy cost on ourselves. The cost which even the parents for a reason that they are carrying a dream that my child will become an engineer, my child will become a doctor, and their dreams are coming from their unconditional love for sure, but this is slightly turning into the pressure, the constant pressure that the child has to fear. See, the child is the foundation of the nation, and if the foundation itself is being artificially nurtured, artificially uh, given a roadmap which is not sustainable in the times to come, the nation is definitely being designed in a way that is not going to sustain in the future, for sure. Again, why and how these systems, how these all things are coming together and costing us. So let me say that these are the things which is forcing parents to force their child to the extreme until studying for 16 hours a day becomes normal, until skipping your sleep becomes like a dedication, until cutting off your friends, locking yourself in a room, and giving up exercises, which is very basic for a human, which is very sustainable and which is very essential for anyone. They start giving pressure to the child. And believe me, for a long we have confused burnout with discipline. And that's a very real question. That's a pertinent question that we have to ask to the system. And the system and these all things has costed us heavily. Like the NCRB data itself shows more than 13,000 suicides. And in a year 2023, the number was substantial in a city like Kolkata, a city like Kota, where the stakes are so much high. So these are not things existing in idealism. These are things happening now with us. Now, in addition, what is balance then? How the balance looks like? Balance is not opposite to ambition. We are not saying that ambition has not to be there. It has to be there. We have to recognize the ambition drives the potential. It brings out the potential from any human. That is really essential. But it is also to make sure that the child who has been doing things relentlessly has enough room to rest, fail, and try again. We are emphasizing on this. It has a room to try again and again. When the curiosity decides the marks, and when the relentlessness outlasts the one bad day, this is the kind of excellence we are working and we are trying to redefine. And this is the only version of excellence around which the classrooms can be created. And believe me, when I say, I mean it. So we have a lot of laws. We have Mental Health Care Act, National Education Policies redefining the spectrum and the lens that we see through. And fortunately, yes, we have been good enough to create policies, good enough to bring laws and all. So technically, we are not short on the policies. We are short on the will to implement this. And that's the harsh reality. We have to acknowledge this. In India, intentions might be good. Your goal would be very profound, but the moment it fails to get implemented, you fail to recognize the very potential of the stakeholder that you are trying to target. So yes, I think we should focus on more like creating an ecosystem of the like-minded people. In a class of 9, the student will not go to their teachers. He will not be very confident enough to share his problems. So we have to make sure that the schools has a mandatory provision of hiring the people and the counselor who might be of the same age, almost like 19 to 20 age category, where the child and the student could be in a better position to share his thought and share his problem with. We have to create an ecosystem of not the old version, but the people of like-minded who are there to volunteer and bridging the gap between the age bracket too. Also, we have Parak, that. We have the very holistic standard of measuring the progress, which has been envisioned in the national education policy itself. We have to make sure that this does count the progress of the child in the more holistic way, and that's for sure. And at the last, I would just like to conclude that coming from the UPSC background, I have myself seen that how the marks, create a class, how the marks create a spectrum and the lens in the different category. What I'm saying that the same people, the same individual who has scored more than one marks more than the cutoff is treated like the glamorous hero. But the same person who just could not clear the cutoff by 1 marks is treated like a failure. We are not we have just to put a benchmark of artificial things, and then we start thinking, okay, so anybody failing to fit this benchmark will be treated as a failure, and anybody who is crossing the line is being treated as someone who is coming from the next planet, from the different planet. We have to democratize the architecture of standard of assessment of the things. And at the last, I just want to conclude with saying that we don't need another Sarmaji Ka Beta for sure. We don't need character like Professor in the Three Idiot. We don't need the whole ecosystem that has been portrayed in the movie Tare Zameen Par. We need the people like Amir Khan, who was portrayed as a teacher in the Tare Zameen Par. We need character like Chanchor Das in the Three Idiot, and then we can amplify the vision by focusing on. First of all, we have to acknowledge the problem exists, and then we can go on building on that. Thank you so much.
Hey, thank you so much, Nikhil. So, like, again, a very powerful and indeed a very powerful. I want to emphasize the word powerful here. Everything that you just said, kind of, I think, reverberates with all and everyone over here. And the fact that you mentioned all the movie references, I think that just was an icing on the cake. We were able to relate like thoroughly. All right, thank you so much, Nikhil. We now have another person who we missed in the previous batch, so now she's comfortable speaking. After that, I think Samia, you would be the next one. So economic students with a strong interest in finance and consulting, driven by curiosity about how markets, business, and economics interact. She enjoys analyzing real-world economic trends, understanding how strategy works, decisions, and how they shape organizational growth and performance. So now let's all welcome Niharika Rawat. Niharika, if you're here, you could take the stage.
Am I audible?
Yes, you are. Please continue.
So, good evening, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here and speak in front of you. And in this session, I'd like to draw the attention on the role of parents in redefining academic excellence. As we all know, academic excellence is valuable for a student, for a child, for even the parents, since it creates opportunities and parents see it as a safe path of success for their child. But unknowingly or unintentionally, we place pressure on a child, which affects his mental health, which leads to anxiety, burnout, which we're going to talk about here. Parents never really intend to, but yeah, unknowingly they do it. Most of the time, they compare their child to another child, which makes them feel inferior or feel bad about themselves, makes them feel they're worthless or they are not worth it. And that puts such pressure on a child that he's not able to perform well, even if he is capable of. And I think it's my personal experience somehow. I still remember the time and when I could not score well. But I thought that it was though my parents did not intend to do so, to put any pressure on me, I thought there was a pressure. And as for parents, I don't think they really know about it, whether what their child is going through. And as for that, I'd say there should be workshops, and the teachers should let the parents know. We should start educating our parents about it first and foremost. Because learning in such environment, it's not learning anymore. It becomes oppressive. And that's what I'd like to emphasize on the role of parents at all. And thank you for having me here. I will not take much of your time. I don't have much to say. That's just my opinion, my point of view, and that's what I express.
All right, thank you so much, Niharika. That was again a really well put speech. Our next speaker brings a beautifully diverse and a global perspective to our dialogue today. An MIT journalism graduate who was raised in Saudi Arabia and is now based in India. Her career spans international Montessori education, corporate training, and edtech relations. An expert in cross-cultural communication. Um, she'll be joining us today. Could we all please join our hands together for Samia Hassan? Samia, you have the ears of the house.
Hi everyone. Am I audible and can everyone see me?
Yes, yes.
Okay, great. Hey everyone. I hope everyone's doing good. Okay, so firstly, I want to thank Sarkari School for organizing such an important summit and for giving ordinary people like me a chance to speak on issues that are unfortunately still considered a taboo in our society. To begin off with, I'm pretty sure that if I ask people here to raise their hands if you're feeling completely exhausted or overwhelmed or feel like you're running on complete, we're gonna, put our hands up because we've all been there. We still are, because unfortunately we are, we're living in a world that looks at a chronically stressed out person and goes like, oh, that person must be working really hard to get where they're going, right? We've given this weird badge of honor to burnout, But today, right now, I'm gonna state it loud and clear that burnout is not excellence. It's simply breaking. It's synonymous with just destroying yourself, and it is time for a massive change. So just think about what a modern classroom looks like. Students are tracking notifications 24/7. They are collecting extracurricular activities like their Pokemon cards or cricket cards, and they're sacrificing sleep just for what? For keeping up with the mountain of homework, and don't even get me started with the created a system where we treat people like machines, but we keep forgetting that when you push a machine to the limit of 110% capacity, it is going to snap, it is going to explode. So when a handmade, a human made, how do we expect ourselves to go any further? We will snap as well. So right now, it is time to rewrite the rules. We need to completely redefine what it means to win in the classroom. So just imagine this, imagine a classroom where F isn't just a permanent scar, a permanent factor. Um, it's just a small data point that will get you to grade A. We need to remember that real excellence is not about staying up till 3 a.m. in the morning, memorizing facts and forgetting them the moment you walk out of the classroom. No, true excellence is about deep, creative, and joyful curiosity. It's about knowing how to think and not just memorize. And we can't get there without balance. We just can't get there without balance. Balance isn't just a reward that you go after. It's basically an engine that makes success possible in the very first place. So again, imagine a classroom where your mental health matters so much more than your GPA. Imagine a school where there is no homework weekends, that gives you a chance to step away, breathe, and guess what, even touch grass, right? So um, speaking about all this, don't think that you're lowering your standards or making things easy for yourself. No, we can still aim high, we can still achieve those goals, we can still think about ourselves in those dream jobs, those dream MNCs with the top floor and the beautiful view to the city, right? We can do that, but we can do that sustainably. We can do that without destroying ourselves completely and not really being there when we reach the end, right? So to the people here who are in the summit right now, thank you for being the frontline champions of this shift. Thank you for setting boundaries. Thank you for offering grace tokens and prioritizing yourself as a human being, and also giving others a chance to see themselves as human beings first, you are definitely changing lives. And to the students who are watching this, stop measuring yourself by the worth of percentage. Stop measuring yourself by the test score that's put in your paper. You are so much more than that. You can do so much and you can thrive. Let's build a culture together. Let's trade that endless midnight anxiety for meaningful mastery, and let's just trade the burnout for true lasting balance. Thank you so much, everyone.
Thanks, Sam. That was such a feel good kind of speech, like something that kind of really grounds you to the ground. Pretty reassuring. Thank you so much. Really nice to hear you. Okay, so up next we have a viral student, first voice joining us directly from the front lines of a modern academic life. She is a student at the School of Open Learning, Delhi University, and a dedicated member of Girl Abdiu. She's passionate about student well-being, tackling academic pressure head-on, and today she's going to join us to speak on from burnout to balance, redefining academic excellence in modern classrooms. So let us please welcome Nana Kaira. Hey Nana, yeah.
Thank you so much for giving me this opportunity to talk on this a very important topic which should be discussed today in our society. I will start this with one question. Have you ever worked harder than you have ever worked before, gotten a genuinely better result than last time, and still worked away feeling like you had failed? That's exactly what happened to me. Um, In class 10th, my exams were split into two cycles. In first, I scored 69%, but I didn't tell anyone. Not because my parents were unreasonable people, but because I had already learned one lesson in that house that only best was acceptable. So I did the only thing I knew how to do. So I worked hard in my second cycle and I scored 87%, an 18-point jump entirely on my own. But when I finally told my parents both numbers, they weren't happy. Not even with the improvement, but because in their minds that bar had never moved. Real effort, real fear, none of it mattered. Only the numbers that was expected before I had been set the exam. And I need you to understand something. I know I wasn't the only student in that position, carrying a hidden number alone. Here's the truth, says aloud loud. Marks show capacity, they do not show knowledge. As we have the term psychology, but that had a word burnout. But Bhagavad Gita already had the answer. In chapter 2, Krishna say, Karmandiye vadikaraste ma phalesu kadachan, which means we have a right to your duty, not to have the fruits of your action. And there is one more words which is discussed in Bhagavad Gita, that is Siddhya Siddhyo Samo Bhutva Samatvan Yog Yuchyate, which means treat success and failure with the same evenness of mind. Give the exam everything you have, but don't let the result decide whether you are allowed to feel okay about yourself or not. Let me give you the some exact numbers before, because this is not just my story, as you all know. In 2022, over 13,000 students died by suicide in India. 2,095 of those deaths followed exam failure. 1,000 of them were under 18, which we can't even imagine. 81% of students report feeling anxious about their study, and only 3% students, three of our Indian schools have an appointed counselor. This is not a small gap. That is a system with almost no net underneath it. So here is it what we are asking for. First, go from 3% to a guarantee, one trained counselor for a 500 student, especially in urban schools, than we have in rural school cluster. Second, we can have cap high stake exam at 60% of final grades. As now we have new education policy 2020, which already recommends this. It just needs a deadline. Third, we can talk about it an 8-hour module on recognizing student distress, which is recently added to NISTHA also, the National Teacher Training Platform. which is low cost because the system is already built, but we only need to use it. None of these require inventing something new. It requires finishing what the Mental Health Care Act means. Similarly, NEP 2020 RTE already started with a date and a budget attached to each one. As I didn't fail at first cycle, I improved by 18 points while carrying real anxiety completely alone because no system around me was built to catch it. With a counselor, with a continuous assessment, with a trained teacher to notice. That 69% would have been a data point on a growth curve, not a secret. So let me ask you a question again. Have you ever worked harder than ever before, gotten a genuinely better result, and still felt like you had failed? If your answer is yes, you already know why we are here. Thank you.
Thank you, Nana. That was the sweetest ending ever. That thank you was pretty sweet. Okay, so your voice was exactly what this summit needed, Nana, or redefining excellence, quote unquote, so that it never comes at the cost of students' mental health is indeed, and I wanna emphasize, I cannot emphasize it more, non-negotiable. So to round out this block now, and our final speaker for this segment connects the lessons of our past with the goals of our future. And she's currently pursuing her PG in history at the University of Hyderabad and is a dedicated UPSC aspirant. Passionate about governance, climate actions, mental health awareness. Let's all give a very warm welcome to Sai Prasanna. Sai Prasanna, you have the ears of the hour.
Good evening, everyone. This is Prasanna. So, let me begin with the famous quote of success, which goes like success is 99% attitude and 1% aptitude. This quote reminds us the fact that success is not determined solely on our talent. Our emotional well being and mental health matter just as much. In spite of this, our education system often teach children how to score marks but not how to manage stress. Next, classrooms where nation is said to be built are becoming a place of constant fear, stress, burnout. So there are many reasons, as my fellow mates have already said it. I would like to say some more, which are exam anxiety, lower self-esteem due to constant comparison, unrealistic expectations of parents, and social stigma attached to failure, above all, rising academic expectations. This leads us to a major question. Are we really building our nation in our classrooms? Or are we just manufacturing some academic machines? So, to answer this, a nation is not built solely by educated minds. It is built by minds which are healthier, stronger, and emotionally resilient. To make this happen, the first and foremost step we have to take is we have to instill awareness among parents, as they are the first one to understand the struggle of the child and they are the most accessible help. We should all strive to create environment which is emotionally supportive. Second, educational institutions, which are whether it might be schools, colleges, universities, should have a trained counselor on mental health on par with physical trainer. Apart from this, they should also include mental health topics like emotional intelligence, stress management, mindfulness, and the most important in this technological era, digital well-being in the academic curriculum. Here, I would like to quote the example of Happy Curriculum, which was introduced by Delhi government in 2008, which focuses on yoga, mindfulness, etc. I would like to also quote an example from one of the developed country, which is US. Most of the schools in US have emotional and social learning in their academic curriculum. Next, the important part is role of the teachers. Teachers should also be trained to identify the signs of burnout, stress, mental health issues. Apart from that, they should be encouraged to have open conversations with the students regarding mental health. Here we can take insights from Australia's BU initiative, where teachers are trained to identify the signs of stress and help students in overcoming them. India has also, as a nation, has also taken many steps like Teledarpan, Telemanas, Manodarpan, and school health and wellness centers, and many more. However, the challenge lies in the fact that these initiatives reach every school and every student. Beyond all this, I would like to emphasize that mental health is not the sole responsibility of government schools alone. It's a shared responsibility. Every conversation, every act of kindness, every value we instill collectively as a society helps us nurture a mentally healthier generation. I would like to conclude my note by saying that focusing on mental health is not a distraction from academic excellence. Rather, it is a prerequisite. If we really want to redefine our academic excellence, we should move beyond marks, grades, ranking, and build classrooms where children are not merely prepared for scoring marks but empowered for life. Because anyways, a nation is not only built by educated minds, it is built by healthy and emotional resilient minds. Thank you.
Exactly, Prasanna. That was a very brilliant reminder, in fact, that informed citizenship and inclusive development, as you quoted, must always place human well-being at the absolute center, and everything as, let's say, more peripheral. Okay. Again, I had a very truly inspiring block of speakers. Thank you so much once again for everybody who spoke until now. Akriti, I'm going to hand the mic back to you now, and it's my pleasure to have you on the stage to introduce our final set of voices as we head towards the home stretch of this summit. So, Akriti, you have the.
Thank you, Anam. What an incredible journey this has been so far. Hello, everyone. I'm Akriti, and it's my absolute privilege to guide us through our final block of phenomenal speakers today as we push towards the home stretch. To lead us off, our first speaker is a dedicated LLB student at the Faculty of Law, University of Delhi, Law Center 2, driven by deep commitment to justice, integrity, and legal research. He aims to build a career in litigation practicing before the Supreme Court of India. Please welcome to the floor Sri Ram.
Shriram, are you there? Okay, Akriti, I think you can proceed to the next.
Okay. Okay, our next speaker brings us a vital analytical perspective from the legal field. She is a second year law student currently pursuing her LLB at Dr. Ram Manohar Lohia National Law University, Lucknow. Please join me in welcoming to the floor Manvi Singh.
Hello, I hope I'm audible. Hello.
Yes, please, you can continue.
Okay. So, good evening, everyone. I do not want to take much of your time, so I'll keep my remarks brief. I want to begin with the data the surveys provide and then highlight what stays in the shadows. In India, 55% of all suicides among children under 18 are committed by girls. Between 2021 and 2022, female student suicides rose by 7%, and over the last decade, it has increased by 92%. These are NCRB figures, recorded deaths, not projections. What the data does not tell you about is about the girl who didn't die, who stopped sleeping, who sits in the back of the classroom carrying something nobody has thought to ask her about. I am a law student and I have spent months wondering why our legal framework, well designed on paper, hasn't reached her. And that gap starts with how we frame the problem in the first place. India's conversation on student mental health usually stops at exam pressure and coaching culture. That's real, but incomplete. Specifically, incomplete for girls. Studies across schools in Delhi and Goa found girls carry a distinct category of stress that boys simply don't. The constant work of managing the risk of sexual harassment at school and on the way to it, alongside the labor of being a girl in spaces not designed with her safety in mind. This is not a presumed sentence. It can be found in the newspapers, the NCRB figures, and the legislative record. Which brings me to the law itself, because the law has always known this. POCSO, which is the Protection of Children from Sexual Offences Act of 2012, criminalizes non contact sexual harassment, which consists of remarks, gestures, and stalking. Sadly, such activities tend to become a part of a female child's routine. In 2024, the Supreme Court expanded this further, holding that mere possession of child sexual exploitative material is itself an offense. The Mental Health Care Act guarantees access to care. The NEP commits to holistic well being, and yet the POCSO conviction rate in 2022 was just 29.6%, and the 2023 amendment that would have bound schools to mental health obligations still hasn't passed. A right without enforcement is a recommendation. A recommendation without political will is a press release. This is what it costs to be asked to be quiet. Girl students aren't just facing academic burnout, they're managing harassment with nowhere to report it, and gender expectations with no legal remedy, while maintaining composure on top of it. The Supreme Court's 2025 guidelines in the case of Sukhdev Saha versus State of Andhra Pradesh declared that mental health is a fundamental right under Article 21, mandating counselors in every school. But the guideline speaks of students generically, and they don't disaggregate by gender. A gender neutral framework applied to a gendered reality does not produce a gender neutral outcome. It produces invisibility. So here is what needs to be changed. Firstly, disaggregation. Every school mental health audit must collect gender data because we cannot fix what we refuse to see. Secondly, recognizing that safety and mental health aren't separate issues and enforcing Sukhdev Saha without enforcing POCSO, reporting an internal complaints mechanism addresses only half of the problem. Thirdly, girls need seats in the room where these policies are written, not as a gesture, but as a structural requirement. I stand here aware that my right to be heard is itself something many girls in this country don't yet have. That gap is inevitable. It is a policy choice, and policy choices can be unmade. And at the end, I'd like to quote Audre Lorde, a famous American writer, who once wrote that my silences had not protected me. Your silences will not protect you. A right to mental health that does not reach a girl in the last page is not a right at all. It is a promise outstanding. And outstanding promises, and any law student will tell you, are still legally enforceable. So thank you.
Thank you, Manvi, for shedding light on how legal framework and structural support systematically impact youth mental well-being. Our third speaker shifts our lens to the high-pressure world of corporate finance, holding an MBA in finance and currently working dynamically within the financial services corporate sector. She brings an essential perspective on managing mental well-being in fast-paced corporate environments. Let's welcome Manisha. Your mic is off.
Hi everyone. It's been a nice journey hearing you all speaking about mental health, which is such a crucial topic to discuss about. So when we hear about mental health or mental issues, we generally feel that this is something concerned to certain people only, but that's not the case. Mental health is something which can be phased, or which can be implemented, or it can occur to anyone, these mental problems, to anyone at any stage of their life. It doesn't matter what role are you playing in this world right now, mental health can affect you at any stage. So talking about the different roles what one plays in this world. Say for example, a teacher, she is concerned with a lot of responsibilities, not only a single student but a lot of students. She has to go through a lot of things throughout the day. She has to take care of the entire syllabus completion, the lessons and whatnot. I see each and every teacher I hear from is stressed these days. Then comes the parents, they are actually concerned about their future, children's future, where they want to get their children, or they're concerned about their kids education, about their schools, their education and their future or their goals. And when it comes to parents, let's not forget about mothers. They're responsible about a lot of things. They have a greater responsibility in any type of a role. They're concerned about the entire household. They're concerned about their household members. They're concerned about how the house is running. Then comes the nurturing of the kids, and then comes her own career and own responsibilities, because women, they generally keep others before themselves. And when I was discussing about all these roles, be it the parent or the teacher or the mother or the adults, they are all mature enough to think about their responsibilities, their stress, their mental issues, because they understand these are the concerned issues they are facing, and they know the technical know-how how to come out of these issues. But when it comes about children, they are not aware of how or what issues they are facing currently and how they should deal with them. That is why it becomes more important for this topic is more crucial, because this is concerning about children, their mental health. I remember a case which I want to discuss, or I want to share an incident of my younger sister. She took medical education by her choice. And I remember the times when she used to study for medical. She was so in pain, so much in stress that she could not handle. And I remember being a elder sister, I took my responsibility and I discussed with her. She actually explained the entire scenario. And I feel like each and every sibling should talk to their younger um brother or sister, so that they are able to vent their emotions out, so that any type of a situation happens, or any type of a whatever we say, any type of a condition or a phase they are going through, they can discuss with their elders, so that they can overcome it. And these days I feel, I mean, we can take the example of the NEET exam leak, this case. A lot of students who have given NEET exam, they are stressed. The ones I mean, who have put all their efforts, they are concerned about this exam again. What else can be more stressful to them right now? I see each and every student these days, they are chasing grades, they are chasing numbers, they are more concerned about getting entrances. They need to clear their entrances for studying their dream schools or colleges. And for overcoming these clearance of these entrances, they have to study a lot. And I feel like this is a lot of pressure on the students. Chasing the numbers and chasing the grades is not the correct way of handling how the childhood, or the this phase of being a children should be handled. And I feel like it is more of a anxious or a exhaustion phase, or we can say it's a burnout, because burnout is not a phase of hard working, but rather it is that the system is totally out of balance. And when it comes to balance, let's not forget about keeping calm and building resilience. Here comes the role, because keeping calm does not mean shutting ourselves down, or it doesn't mean we're not taking any step. Rather, it means we have a clear vision in our head. We are clear enough to decide what are we supposed to do and how we are supposed to handle this situation. And comes the role of resilience, because resilience means the will or the gut of one one person to overcome their setbacks or any kind of an issue. So I feel like I just wanted to end this with the thought that each and every person should talk to their friends, to their siblings, to their family, to their teacher or the mental health professional, so that they can come up or vent out what they feel. So, and it's talking about all of this is a sign of strength, not weakness. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Manisha. It is so critical to talk about the corporate aspect of mental health, especially as young graduates prepare to transition from classroom to demanding corporate careers. Our next speaker is a dedicated LLB student at the Faculty of Law, University of Delhi Law Center 2, driven by a deep commitment to justice, integrity, and large research and legal research. He aims to build a career in litigation practicing before the Supreme Court of India. Please welcome Sri Ram.
थैंक यू। जब बचपन ही बोझ तले दबने लगे तो भविष्य कैसे मुस्कुराएगा। जब सपनों से पहले डर घर कर जाए तो भारत कैसे आगे बढ़ पाएगा। आज समय है आवाज उठाने का, बदलाव की मशाल जलाने का, हर बच्चे के मानसिक स्वास्थ्य को राष्ट्र का पहला अधिकार बनाने का। आदरणीय अध्यक्ष महोदय, सम्मानित निर्णायकगण, विशिष्ट अतिथिगण एवं मेरे सभी साथियों, आज सभी को मेरा सादर नमस्कार। मैं श्री राम सहानी, दिल्ली विश्वविद्यालय लॉ सेंटर 2 का विधि का छात्र हूँ। आज मैं ऐसे विषय पर अपने विचार साझा करने आया हूँ जो केवल शिक्षा या स्वास्थ्य का नहीं बल्कि भारत के भविष्य का विषय है। आज का विषय है विद्यालयों में बच्चों का मानसिक स्वास्थ्य। हम अक्सर बच्चों से पूछते हैं पढ़ाई कैसी चल रही है, लेकिन हम बहुत कम पूछते हैं साथियों, हम बहुत कम पूछते हैं कि तुम मानसिक रूप से कैसे हो। यही प्रश्न आज की बड़ी आवश्यकता है। भारत का संविधान प्रत्येक नागरिकों को गरिमा के साथ जीवन जीने का अधिकार देता है। अनुच्छेद 21 के अंतर्गत जीवन जीने का अधिकार केवल जीवित रहने का अधिकार नहीं बल्कि सम्मान, सुरक्षा और मानसिक कल्याण के साथ जीने का अधिकार भी देता है। वहीं अनुच्छेद 21A प्रत्येक बच्चे को शिक्षा का अधिकार प्रदान करता है। मेरे प्यारे साथियों, इसी सोच को आगे बढ़ाते हुए मानसिक स्वास्थ्य देखभाल अधिनियम 2017, शिक्षा का अधिकार अधिनियम 2009, पोक्सो अधिनियम 2012 तथा राष्ट्रीय शिक्षा नीति 2020 बच्चों के लिए सुरक्षित, समावेशी और मानसिक रूप से स्वस्थ विद्यालय वातावरण की परिकल्पना करते हैं। लेकिन प्रश्न यह है, क्या यह अधिकार वास्तव में हर बच्चे तक पहुंच रहे हैं? दुर्भाग्य से उत्तर है अभी नहीं। मित्रों, आज कई बच्चे परीक्षा के दबाव, बुलिंग, साइबर बुलिंग, सोशल मीडिया, पारिवारिक तनाव और भविष्य की चिंता से जूझ रहे हैं। वे अक्सर अपनी समस्या व्यक्त नहीं कर पाते और धीरे धीरे उनका आत्मविश्वास, सीखने की क्षमता और व्यक्तित्व प्रभावित होने लगता है। साथियों, विश्व स्वास्थ्य संगठन WHO के अनुसार दुनिया में लगभग हर 7 में से 1 किशोर किसी न किसी मानसिक स्वास्थ्य समस्या से प्रभावित है। यह केवल स्वास्थ्य का विषय नहीं बल्कि शिक्षा, मानवाधिकार और सामाजिक न्याय का भी विषय है। प्यारे साथियों, माननीय सर्वोच्च न्यायालय ने उन्नी कृष्णन JP बनाम आंध्र प्रदेश राज्य 1993 में शिक्षा को गरिमापूर्ण जीवन के अधिकार से जोड़ा। इसके बाद अविनाश मेहरोत्रा बनाम भारत संघ 2009 केस में न्यायालय ने स्पष्ट किया कि बच्चों को सुरक्षित शैक्षिक वातावरण उपलब्ध कराना राज्य का दायित्व है। आज के समय में सुरक्षित वातावरण तभी पूर्ण माना जाएगा जब उनमें मानसिक सुरक्षा और भावनात्मक सहयोग भी शामिल हो। सुप्रीम कोर्ट ने अपने ऐतिहासिक केस सुखदेव साहा बनाम आंध्र प्रदेश राज्य में साफ कहा कि छात्र कोई मशीन नहीं है और मानसिक रूप से स्वस्थ रहना उनका मौलिक अधिकार है। मान्यवर, अब समय केवल समस्या बताने का नहीं बल्कि समाधान प्रस्तुत करने का है। मैं इस मंच से 5 सुझाव रखना चाहूंगा पहला, प्रत्येक विद्यालय में प्रशिक्षित मनोवैज्ञानिक या काउंसलर की नियुक्ति अनिवार्य की जाए। दूसरा, शिक्षकों को मानसिक स्वास्थ्य की पहचान और प्राथमिक सहायता का नियमित प्रशिक्षण दिया जाए। तीसरा, प्रत्येक विद्यालय में गोपनीय एवं सरल परामर्श व्यवस्था विकसित की जाए ताकि बच्चे बिना डर अपनी समस्या साझा कर सकें। चौथा, अभिभावकों के लिए नियमित जागरूकता कार्यक्रम आयोजित की जाए जिसमें वे केवल अंकों पर नहीं बल्कि बच्चों के मानसिक और भावनात्मक विकास पर भी ध्यान दें। पांचवा, केंद्र और राज्य सरकारें विद्यालयों में मानसिक स्वास्थ्य संबंधी नीतियों के प्रभावी क्रियान्वयन की नियमित निगरानी करें और प्रत्येक विद्यालय की जवाबदेही सुनिश्चित करें। प्रिय साथियों, एक स्वस्थ मन ही एक सशक्त समाज और विकसित भारत की नींव रखता है। यदि हम बच्चों के मानसिक रूप से सुरक्षित वातावरण देंगे तो वे केवल अच्छे विद्यार्थी ही नहीं बल्कि संवेदनशील नागरिक, जिम्मेदार नेता और बेहतर इंसान बनेंगे। मैं अपने विचार इस पंक्ति के साथ समाप्त करना चाहूंगा। यदि हम बच्चों के मन को सुरक्षित नहीं रख पाए, यदि हम बच्चों के मन को सुरक्षित नहीं कर पाए, हम उनके भविष्य को भी सुरक्षित नहीं रख पाएंगे। आइए हम ऐसी शिक्षा व्यवस्था बनाएं जहां प्रतिस्पर्धा हो लेकिन करुणा भी हो, जहां उत्कृष्टता हो लेकिन मानसिक शांति भी हो। आप सभी को बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद। जय हिंद, जय भारत।
Thank you so much, Sriram, for highlighting how integrity, structured research, and legal pathway plays a massive role in creating safer, fairer environments for the youth. Up next, we have a fresh, vibrant perspective representing the exact pivot point where schools ends and the future begins. A recent school graduate, she carries a deep interest in psychology, political science, and business administration. Please join me in welcoming Ojasvi Sharma. Ojasvi. Okay. So our next speaker brings us back to the legal domain with a passionate focus on social justice. A law student from Delhi University, she is fiercely dedicated to women's empowerment and holds a strong desire to fight for vital social causes through legal avenues. Please welcome to the screen Shivangi. Shivangi, I think she's not there. Okay. So, our next speaker of the day is an engineering graduate working in the project management domain. Over the past 2 years, his journey preparing for the UPSC Civil Services examination has deeply connected him to the world of policy, governance, and social awareness. Please welcome our final speaker, Chetan Bendale.
We can't hear you, Chetan. We can't hear you. If you want, you can like remove your earphones. Can't hear you now. We can wait, that's all right. Chitani can try joining from a different device as well. See if that works.
Hello.
Yeah, audible.
Am I audible? Okay. Thank you. Thank you for the patience. Hello, everyone. Speaking last is like a two-edged sword. You patiently listen to everyone, but you lose your content. So that I lost my many points, and almost all the speakers holistically mentioned all the whole points, and they created the good picture. The very first time when I read about this summit and the topic of the summit, the very first thing which crossed my mind was a picture which Nikhil also mentioned, which was filmed 17 years back, The Three Idiots. Uh, it was not just the story of engineering students, but it was the story of two competing definitions of the excellence. At the one side, we had the definition of the professor, that is Viru Sahasrabuddhe Viru, who defines the excellence as giving more emphasis on the rank, speed, and competition. And in that definition, we had the character of the Chatur, the student who is in unidirectional mechanical learner, and he was the torchbearer of that particular kind of thinking. And along with that, we also had the Joy Lobo, who was like a misfit, and he has the talent. He was a guitarist, plus he had the talent of innovation and developing a drone. Yet he succumbed to the pressures and suicides. And rightly mentioned by the rancho in the film that that was not suicide but the murder by the system, and we are still dealing with the same problem. And the second definition, which is the rancho's definition, which was about the curiosity, understanding, love for the subject, and learning for the sake of learning. So 17 years later, that debate is still defines our classroom, and many reports from the authentic institutions indicate that nearly 60 to 70% of the students from the middle age schools to the graduation are severely experiencing the moderate to severe psychological distress. And also, there is a lack of adequate formal health and support services. So today, burnout is often discussed as a mental issue, but I think it is more than that. It is a deeper system design challenge. And before we move forward to the burnout to balance value thing, it is much necessary to understand what is the purpose of the education. We all know that education is not just to produce marks, ranks, and placements. It is not the constant run for the external validation and continuous never-ending loop. We indeed know this is not the true definition of the education, but education ideally exists to develop capable, creative, resilient, and responsible mind. And that's why the balance becomes the foundation of the excellence. We have the various policies by the government, let it be the mental health policy, RTA Act, then a recent NEP 2021, which together envision the safe and inclusive learn center schools. Yet, despite this strong policy framework and good intent behind this policy, yet we suffer and continue to experience overwhelming academic stress. So, what are the reasons for this particular stress? The first thing which came to my mind is like there is an implementation deficit. Like, for example, let's say in NEP 2020, it do promote the competency-based and holistic education, but many classrooms still continues on the traditional method of the rote learning. So it is clearly the implementation deficit. The second thing is the responsibility and the accountability for the students' mental health is not clear. Who is a responsible person for the student's mental health? Is it the student or the parents or the system or the school? It is not clear. So, and unless and until someone takes the ownership, we cannot solve this problem. The third step is the capacity gap, that many schools still lack the trained counselors, teachers, and their capacity is very less. And teachers also are teachers are also very often overburdened and experience burnout, therefore unable to produce the desired results. The fourth thing, which is a quite a unique way, I think, in a way, market and global order of capitalism And ultra efficiencies also brings the toxic productivity, which further percolates to the education systems. And the final thing, that is the cultural stigma. The cultural stigma in our homes and our schools, that the academic performance has become the measure of the personal worth. Failure is often treated as a stigma rather than the step in the learning. And when children fear more about disappointing the society than they value the learning, and that's the major concern for the burnout. So now, what are the policy priorities, or what are the solutions to move from the burnout to balance? So first thing which we should do is strong institutionalized health framework, which not only implement but also monitors. So we are lacking for the monitoring part. The second thing is reducing the over dependence on the high stake examinations, like NEET is there, and many competitive examinations are there, and rather to shift towards a better competency measurement framework and evaluation techniques, which successfully carried out by Finland, Norway, and Japan. And third is to bring our traditional and modern day Singapore education system, which follows teach less and learn more. So, which emphasize more on the curricular and creative endeavors than just unidirectional theoretical learning. And finally, we need to redefine excellence itself. As many of our my fellow speakers spoke, that alongside academic outcomes, schools should also measure the well-being, inclusion, student engagement, and holistic development. Because what we choose to measure ultimately defines what we value. And it is important to build a classroom where curiosity matters more than comparison, where resilience matters more than rankings, where every child can learn without fear, the class which value inclusivity than the groups and layers, and which follow the principle of Antodaya. Because true academic excellence is not achieved when students survive the system, but it is achieved when the system enables every student to thrive. So thank you so much for giving me this opportunity. And also I thank my friend Vedashree who introduced me to this particular channel. So thank you.
Thank you, Chetan, for reminding us that regardless of our background, whether engineering, corporate, or policy, sensitivity to social issue connects us all. What a marathon! Huge congratulations to all our speakers. You have spoken with such profound clarity, intellect, and grace. Your thoughtful insights and meaningful contribution have made this summit truly impactful. As we come to the final segment, of today's event, I would now like to hand the floor right back to our hosts, Anam and Twinkle.
Right, okay. So 21 voices and 21 perspectives, and one and
Today, we didn't just talk about mental health. We dismantled the silence that has surrounded it for generations.
the stories and the solutions. But more importantly, we have felt the energy of the room, a digital community, so to say, that refuses to accept hushed voices as the status quo anymore.
To our speakers, researchers, change makers, thank you. You have shown us that while the barriers in our schools, that lack of supports, the courage of academic pressures, the systematic gaps are real. They are not permanent.
They are merely challenges waiting for the courage of people like you to solve them.
As we bring the summit to a close, we must remember that the end of the session is not the end of the mission.
The real work actually begins when we log off.
It begins when we walk back into our classrooms and refuse to conceal your strength.
It begins when you advocate for a safe emotional space in a government school or, a supportive counseling network in a rural block.
It begins when you choose science over stigma.
And empathy over embarrassment.
We start today by asking why.
Why the shame? Why the silence?
After hearing you all, we ended today with the different word how.
How do we sustain this momentum?
How do we ensure that the next generation of the student does not have the courage, their anxiety, and burden in their fear?
How do we make mental well being a right and not a luxury?
The answers lie in the collaboration formed today. They lies in the policies, discourage, and the awareness spread.
We want to extend our deepest gratitude to the Sarkari School Initiative and the entire organizing team for giving youth voices a platform like today, where they are not just heard but valued.
To every participant who stayed with us through these 21 incredible sessions, you are now ambassador of this cause.
Carry these solutions with you, speak them loudly, and write them clearly.
Because when we replace silence with a solution,
We don't just change a conversation.
we change the world.
Thank you for being part of this journey.
Good night, everyone. Just open your cameras for the group photograph.
Can we have all the cameras open, please? Yusuf, Shriram, Niharika, Mohini, Arnav, Manisha, Rashi, Tushar, Sanya, Tanisha, Gokul, Ananya. If you all could open your cameras as well, please. Okay, guys, I really request you all to take pictures as well and share with me after the session. Okay, I think we're done. Are we done? Can you all like react with a thumbs up? Right, so I'll be sending everyone a brochure that we have created. You will anyway have the pictures from tonight, and we'll be sending out. We'll be actually carrying out a speaker, after session sort of report. And in addition to that, we'll also provide everyone with a certificate of participation, certificate of being such a vocal advocate of mental health. So these are the four things on our agenda, and feel free to post on LinkedIn, tag Sarkari School, tag your moderators, whoever you felt the most comfortable with, tag people, and let's carry this movement forward. Thank you, everyone. Thank you so much for being here. Loved hearing every one of you.